Hello and welcome to Accessible Digital Design, presented by Scott McAfee. In this presentation, I'm going to cover three main topics, and those are topic one, document and Canvas accessible design elements. So the first part of this presentation is going to focus on everything you need to know to make your Word, PDF, and Canvas documents/pages accessible at College of the Canyons. The good news is, I'm willing to bet you probably do most of these already, as they are pretty standardized design elements nowadays. So it shouldn't be too difficult implementing the minor things you may not do that we will cover in this presentation. Number two, I'm going to review captioning. What are the requirements and what are the resources? In this section, I'll break down what the various forms of captioning take in higher education, including subtitles and transcripts. And then I'll tell you when and how to caption your content. The good news here is it's a very standardized process now, and it's very simple to simply fill out a form and have captions appear on your content or as live captioners in your online class. Last but not least, in the third section, I'm going to cover this mysterious looking VPAT, which stands for Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. If you're going to be bringing any type of electronic tools or tool sets into your course, let's say, for example, you're using Pearson's Math Lab, and you want your students to access that as part of your course, then you'll need to have Pearson fill out a VPAT, and I'll get into all of those details at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, let's begin. We're going to start with section one, accessible design basics for Word, PDF, and Canvas. Now, this is just an overview. I'll get into all of these in detail one by one, but first I'm going to start off by using styles to denote headings. Anytime we create a document, whether it's a Canvas page, a Word document, or a PDF document, we have to add structure to the document. And I'll get into why we do this in a minute. But we add structure to the document by using headings. And everything that is related to accessible design, more or less, is about adding some type of structure to these digital creations. Next, and along the same lines, we're going to use list styles to create numbered and bulleted lists. Anytime we have a list in our content, it has to be assigned that list style. Now, if you're using Word or pretty much any modern word processing suite or software, it should do this for you automatically. But just in case it doesn't, I'll show you how to do it manually. Next, we're going to talk about providing alternative text for all images. Now, this is a fun one because it works your brain out a little bit in thinking about, well, what do I put for this? But I'll provide several scenarios, including those that have complex images like pie charts. What do we do then? How do we provide alternative text for that? I'll get into all of those details and give you examples. Next, we're going to talk about ensuring headers within the tables are tagged. I always laugh at this one because it's such a simple setting. The hardest thing about this particular accessible design element is remembering to do it. So I'll show you where to check the box to make sure headers within tables are tagged. Next, we're going to talk about adequate color contrast between all text and the background. It still surprises me to this day that I'll still see websites that look like they were designed back in 1999 on Geo sites or Angel Fire. And shout out to those of my fellow millennials who get those references. And we're going to talk about how to make sure that we don't have neon pink font on a neon green background and more relevant examples of how to use color in a way that doesn't prohibit those who can't see color from participating. Last but not least, we're going to talk about descriptive links. Anytime we use active links in our content, the links in and of themselves must describe where they take you to. And I'll give you examples, both bad and good, of how to create descriptive links. Now, I have a little note down here stating, while word processing software used to vary dramatically, Word for Windows, Word for the Mac, LibreOffice, OpenOffice, Google Docs, any of these Office suites that you might be using that are not Microsoft Office, they should all be able to do what I'm about to show you. All modern word processing suites should be able to generate accessible content in the ways I'm about to show you. That said, the primary tools I'm going to be using today to generate my accessible content will be Microsoft Office Word, Adobe Acrobat PDF, and Canvas. Without further ado, let's begin. So as I noted, we have to add structure to our document, which seems kind of odd for a digital creation. How can we add a structure to this ethereal digital creation? Well, let's take a step back. When you're looking at the text in a document or on a web page or in Canvas, what are you actually looking at? Well, what you're actually looking at is HTML code that is generating what you are seeing. So if we can get into that code, we can actually add a structure in there that will allow people who are blind or visually impaired to navigate through that code to get to where they need to be. Now, if you have a blind or visually impaired student or just a member of the public trying to access your content, they will in all likelihood be using something called a screen reader. Now, a screen reader is a very powerful piece of software that allows someone who is blind or visually impaired to audibly navigate the web, digital documents, Canvas pages, anything electronic. So as a simple explanation, it will search for the HTML that we can't see, that's buried underneath all of these things. It'll try to find the text and it'll read the text aloud and any other structural elements in that HTML code. And that's basically how it works. Now, as we get more into this technology, blind and visually impaired screen reader users learn special keyboard commands. So by hitting certain keys at the same time, they might be able to find all of the headings in your document, and they can tell their screen reader, read these headings for me, which makes for much simpler navigation. As a sighted user, if I'm looking at your syllabus, I can quickly use my visual prowess to scan the document, look at your headings until I find the section I need. As a visually impaired or blind user, if I'm using a screen reader, I need to have that same ability. Otherwise, I'm stuck reading the first word of your syllabus all the way until I get to where I need to be. And that's why we add these structural elements to these documents. So let's take it on back now. The first step is adding headings to our document. Now, this is very simple, and there's only two rules you need to remember when adding heading structure to your document. Now, the first rule is the title of your document is always set to heading 1, and it should be the only heading 1 in the entire document. Okay, so that's the first rule. Now, before I get into the second rule, let's take a minute and take a look at what's on the screen here, because there might be some confusion already. Now, if we take a look at the screen, we see the heading style ribbon. And we'll start from the left and we see normal, and that's the bulk of your syllabus and content. It's going to be in normal. And we see no space. Don't worry about that one. We see heading 1, heading 2, heading 3, heading 4. Those are what we are going to be using to add structure to our document. But here's where it gets a little confusing. If we look just to the right of heading 4, we'll see the title heading. Well, why wouldn't we use the title heading for the title of our document? And I wouldn't blame you for doing that. That seems to be the intuitive thing to do. But when we talk about assistive technologies, in particular screen readers, they might not be able to interpret what this title assignment is. They're looking for numerical progressions, heading 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1, that type of thing. So that is why we do not use non-numerical headings. So let's go back. The title, that is rule number 1, the title of the document is always set to heading 1, and it should be the only heading 1 in the entire document. Now, the second rule is somewhat redundant, so it's very easy to remember. The second rule states all other headings in the document should be subservient to heading 1, meaning 2, 3, 4, and follow a logical progression. Okay, this is easier to understand if I show you in real time. So I'm going to pull up a syllabus of mine and show you in real time how to structure your document using headings. So in the past, before accessible design, this is how faculty would, generally speaking, create their syllabi. They would take the title, in this case, it's Communication Studies 105, Fundamentals of Public Speaking, and we would center it. It's already centered. Maybe I'd bold it. Okay. Maybe I'd make it a little larger. There we go. There's the title of my document. Clearly, you can see that's the title of my document. And I'm not saying you can't still do this if this is your design style. But here's what we have to do first. First, we have to go to rule number one. And rule number one states that the title of the document is always set to heading one. So I'm going to go up to the style ribbon here after I've highlighted the title, and I'm going to search for heading one. There it is. I'm going to click on heading one, and boom, I've now added the first structural element to my document. Now you'll notice, since I've already added some formatting to it, I centered it, I bolded it, I made it larger. When I added the heading one element, it changed some of that. That's fine. Now that we've added the heading one, we can do whatever we want with it, whatever your particular style is. In this case, I'm just showing you a very simple example. So now that I've added heading one, I'm going to go back. I'm going to add all my design elements. Maybe I want to underline it. Who knows? And I can do pretty much whatever I want as long as I've added that heading one structure. Okay, so we're done with rule number one. Now let's add structure to the rest of the document. Now I know there can be only a single heading one in the document. I've already taken care of that. So let's search for all the subheadings now. Let's see here. Well, we'll leave it as normal text. I'd say this is probably the first real subheading here. So I'm going to go ahead and I can't make it heading one, right? We know that. So I'm going to make it heading two. And you'll notice it also messes with my formatting. So I'm going to go ahead and again, this is just demonstrating that you can design it however you want. Once you've done that, I'm going to go ahead and make that. Okay, now I'm going to come down here. Here's another subheading, catalog description. In fact, let's take a quick look. Course requirements might be another one. And then we get into some subheadings here with the speeches and outlines, audience. So let's see how I might take care of that. So I've already gone to my first subheading, and I've added heading two. Now let's say I consider this catalog description a subheading as well. Should I make it heading three? No. Rule number two states all subheadings are subservient to heading one and must follow a logical progression. So in my mind, the catalog description is at the same level of course objectives. So I'm going to make that heading two as well. There's no rule saying I can't use multiple heading twos. So I'm going to go ahead and add my same design to that. There we go. And course requirements, same deal. I also think that's heading two. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Make that larger. Again, clearly you would design this better than what I'm doing now. This is just an example. Now we come to my subheadings. Here we go. Speeches and outlines. Now it's one down below two. So I'm going to make that three. Whoops. Oh, yeah, there we go. And we're going to audience attendance. We're going to make that three. And you'll notice it does some weird things to my formatting, so I'd have to change that later on. But you get the picture. Now, if we keep going down here, we might come back to a heading two. As long as you are logical and consistent in your design, and you have only one heading one in the entire document, you're going to be fine. And that is how we add heading structure to our documents. And that is probably the most technical and quote unquote challenging accessible design element we're going to be discussing in this presentation. Let's move on to some more fun things now. If you are using Adobe Acrobat Pro and you want to see, you know what, I wonder if this document is tagged. Well, you can always go to the tag section, and if you see something like this, you know it's tagged and you're probably in good shape. So here we see the tag section, and I see H1. So that stands for heading one. So I know whatever is nested underneath heading one must be the title of the document. Sure enough, cooking techniques is indeed the title of the document. Now I see H2. So I know whatever is nested under there, we can see at least two things nested under there. Those have to be the chapters. And sure enough, cooking with oil, cooking with butter, and it continues on. Those are the chapters. So we can see just by looking at this that we're in pretty good shape. Now, if you go to the tag section and you see a sad message saying there are no tags, oh boy, you're not even looking at a document really, even though it looks like a document. One way to think about it is what you're looking at is if someone held their cell phone over a Word document and took a picture of it, and they were showing you this document, this picture of the document on their phone. That's basically what you're looking at. And in order to edit it and make it accessible is, for lack of a better word, an ordeal. So this is a good part in this training video to start discussing Adobe Acrobat PDF and how we are trying to move away from PDF documents as a means of conveying digital information in higher education. So I know many of the majors here, in particular the science majors, are still deeply ingrained with PDF documents. I understand that, and we will be discussing ways to make your PDFs accessible further on in this training. So I'm not gonna, we still are working towards that. But I want to encourage you to consider if the content that you are using right now, in particular, my fellow comms instructors, English instructors, so non-science based fields, does your content really need to be in a PDF format? Let me give you an example. For most faculty I talk to, they generate their syllabus in PDF format and they make it available on Canvas. This is pretty standard practice. When I ask why they put their syllabus in PDF format, almost always the answer is because you can't mess with a PDF document. It's protected, and it's universally used. The thing is, you have the same benefits by just copying and pasting the text from your syllabus into a Canvas page. You have the same level of protection, but 1,000% more accessible than PDF and way easier to make accessible than PDF. Same with basic text-based documents that you might be having your students read. Do you really want to spend days, weeks, and no joke, possibly months editing down a text-based PDF document trying to make it accessible? Or would you rather just copy and paste that into a Canvas page, receive the same benefits of Adobe PDF, but none of the hassle? This is why I encourage folks to move away from PDF in general. There's no simple way to make these documents accessible unless they are extremely simple documents in and of themselves, and that's rare. When you fix one thing in a PDF, it might break three other strange things you've never even heard of. So this is my plea, and I will continue as we move on to reevaluate the content that you are using in your course and whether or not it requires this PDF format, or if you would be better served by moving this content into a a Canvas page for better accessibility and, for that matter, ease on your part. Now, as I mentioned, I would never abandon my PDF users here at COC. So if you are stuck using Adobe PDF documents for whatever reason, then I would encourage you to visit the Adobe Acrobat Pro COC resource page. Now, the PDF guru on campus, Mr. Stephen Burns, is my go-to when I cannot figure out how to fix a PDF document. And I'll tell you, if he can't figure it out, then it's going to have to be recreated from scratch. That's just how it goes. Now, Stephen has collected all of the errors that have come his way in terms of accessible design for PDF documents, and he has put them on this Adobe Acrobat Pro COC resource page. So chances are, if you are coming up with accessibility errors, and I'll show you that in the next few slides, when you're checking your PDF documents for accessibility, chances are they are located on this web page. And if you come here and you click on the error, it'll show you step-by-step instructions on how to fix the error, which is a heck of a lot more than the PDF auto checker will show you. So keep that in mind. You can always come to the Adobe Acrobat Pro COC resource page, and your error that you're encountering is most likely here. And if it's not, you can let me know or Stephen know, and we can try to figure it out, and then we will add it to this page. Another resource, if you are using PDF documents, is the District Accessibility Resources webpage. This is the centralized location for all things accessibility related in the district, and we are constantly building up this page, adding additional resources, and making it better and more informative. And you can see there's a PDF section right on the left, PDF documents. There's templates in there. There's instructions for various types of documents you're creating. While we're here, you can also check out the Outlook email. Yes, even our emails have some accessible design requirements, and I go into detail on what those are in that section. At College of the Canyons, we have policies and procedures, including administrative and board policy procedures that focus on accessibility. So you can go and learn all about those at this section. There's some Microsoft Word documents. Again, I have templates, directions, instructions, another forms and template section. I find that there's a lot of inaccessible meeting minutes when I'm scouring the web page for inaccessible documents. A lot of departments are required or they just decide to post their meeting minutes on our district website for public compliance or whatever. And a lot of those are inaccessible. So we went ahead and put some meeting templates that are already accessible, meeting notes and meeting minutes. So you can just use those and not have to worry about designing anything. And last but not least, some captioning resources, which we're going to go into in this presentation. So make sure to check out those two main resources. I'll go back. That's the Adobe Acrobat Pro COC resource page and the District Accessibility Resources page for all of your PDF and other accessibility needs for the district. Okay, we're moving right along, folks. Let's now talk about lists. Now, as I noted earlier, if you are using any recent version of Microsoft Word, it will go ahead and add, it just knows you're creating a list and it'll do this for you. But just in case it doesn't, let's talk about how and why we add lists. So if you're typing up a document and you have a list right in the middle, if you're sighted, you can look at that and you know that there's a list. However, if you're blind or visually impaired and you're using a screen reader, it's going to be reading the text, and then all of a sudden it comes across this chunk of text. It doesn't quite know what to do with it, where it goes. It might even move it somewhere else, which makes it's completely confusing for the screen reader user. So just like adding structural headings to our document, now we have to embed this list style into our list. And it's, like I said, if it's not done for you already, it's terribly easy to do. All you have to do is highlight the list, this is in Word, and go up to your style ribbon and you'll see two options. I've highlighted them here in the slide. On the left, you'll see the bulleted list, and on the right, you'll see the numbered list. Now, there's even more options. It's really hard to see, but each list has a little tiny down arrow triangle thingy, and you can, I think that's its technical term, and you can click on that and it'll give you even more options like check boxes or squares or check marks or whatever. It's all fine as long as you are using those styles. Moving right along. Oh, this is my favorite topic to talk about. This is alternative text. So anytime you use images in digital content, those images have to have an alternative text-based description for those who are unable to see the images. Now, on top of that, the description can't just be placed underneath the image. Again, let's think about screen readers. Screen readers come across some sort of image. There's no description embedded in the image, so it has no relationship. It has no idea that the text underneath this mysterious image is connected to that image, and it might not know how to interpret that. So we actually have to take this description and put it inside the image itself. Boy, that sounds terribly difficult, doesn't it? And technical. Oh, not at all. Again, if you're using any type of modern Office suite or Word or document creation suite, it should all do this for you automatically. Now, here I'm using the latest version of Word. And what's neat about the latest version of Word is that it has some AI built into it. So it tries to detect the images automatically and put its own alternative text descriptions in there. So here I have right-clicked on the image, which brings down the drop-down menu. And one of the options in the drop-down menu is Edit Alt Text. And when you click that, you'll see the Alt Text window pane on the right-hand side. Now, the Auto AI or Auto Image AI, whatever they're calling it, it has detected the image and created this text: wildflowers, flowers, hillside. Well, not grammatically correct, but still not bad, huh? It's going to be very interesting to see how this technology advances over the next few years. So we're going to go ahead and add our own alternative text to this because we're not happy with what AI came up with. So what do we put in there though? And how long should it be? Good questions. To answer the second question first, because it's the easier one to answer, I generally recommend no more than 8 words for alternative text. No one's going to be looking through here and counting words, and sometimes it takes more than 8 words. But I'm just giving you a generalization. 8 words or less is usually what we're looking for. You don't have to write a novel. It's just a basic description. So now let's go back to the first question. Well, what do I put in there? Well, that depends on 2 things. Depends firstly on the content. So what actually is in the image? And the second component, which only you can answer, and that's, well, what's the context? So the content is fairly easy. It's flowers on a hillside, right? That's what's in the image. I can't deny that. So that part's done. The context, though, only the content creator can answer that. So let's say I'm a photography instructor, okay, and I am trying to demonstrate how to take photography outdoors using certain settings. Okay, my apologies to the photography instructors listening to this. So in this case, the content would be the same: wildflowers on a hillside, but the context might be uh, demonstrating 30 millimeter shutter speed outdoors in sunlight. Okay, but that will change if I'm a biology instructor. The content remains the same: flowers on the hillside, but now my context is demonstrating photosynthesis, period. Okay. So it all depends on why you are showing this image to your end users, your students, the public, whatever. So it's content, what's actually in the image, and context, why am I showing this image? And hopefully it's that simple for you. Now, before I get on to more complex images, let's take our eyes and scroll down a little bit to the bottom of the screen here. And I've circled it for you. And you'll notice there's a little text at the bottom of my Word document that says accessibility good to go. Keep that in mind for later as I talk about the Word accessibility checker that's built in. Word is fantastic. It's always checking for accessibility. So if you look down there and you see an error or it tells you you need to fix something, it'll hold your hand and you'll know right away. So Word is a good option for designing basic accessible content. Okay, so we've looked at an easy example. Let's take a look at, well, a difficult example. What happens if you're teaching a class or you're putting together a report made available for the public and it has very complex images? Here on the screen, I have chosen perhaps 2 of the most complex images I could think of when it comes to creating alternative text. And those are, there's actually 3 pie charts on the screen here. And I just put this together for fun. And I put economic comparisons, Australia and the United States. And on the right-hand side, it appears to be a pie chart of, boy, state funds in the United States. Excuse me. And on the left-hand side, there seems to be spending habits of Australia. So let's go ahead and talk about how we might add alternative text to these images. We'll go through 3 scenarios. So the first scenario is these images, boy, you only really have one thing that you want your students to look at, and you want them to look at California and how California has a 37 million budget and how that compares to the, I don't know, I'm just giving an example here, the defense of Australia at 21.27 million, if I'm reading that correctly. All right, and that's all you want your students to know. Oh, but there you go. That's your alt text right there. So the content would be 2 pie charts demonstrating finances of the United States and finances of Australia, right? That's the content. And the context in this case would be with California spending 37 million compared to Australia's 21.2 defense budget. There you go. Easy. Okay, example 2. Oh boy, this gets a little more complicated. I actually need the students to be able to read the whole chart. All right, that's part of the learning objectives. They're going to have to write a paper on the various finances in the chart on the right compared to the charts on the left. And there's no getting around it. They have to read the whole thing. All right, here's the best case solution slash scenario for that particular scenario. Hopefully, somewhere in your course textbook, there is a full description of these charts. And if that's the case, you're in luck. You can go into your alternate text-based description, and the content's always the same. Again, pie chart of American spending on, and then pie charts of Australian spending, but the context changes now. And in this context, we can say, please see chapter 5, pages 22 and 23 for full descriptions of pie charts. All right, great. Okay, third scenario. You know where I'm going with this one, don't you? We need the students and the public to be able to have alternative text descriptions for the entire charts, and there's no text-based description. What do I do now, Scott? Not only do I have these charts, but this is slide one of a 30-slide presentation or a 30-page PDF document. And each page has multiple pie charts like this. Are you telling me I'm going to have to sit down there and basically write all of this out? Well, once upon a time, yes, but now there's there's other solutions, I'll say. Now, this first solution I'm going to show you is a little outside the box. It's somewhat new, but I think you'll like it. And that's AI generated alt text. Now, hold on. I know AI is still somewhat controversial in the higher education setting, but keep in mind what I'm talking about has nothing to do with that controversy. This is simply using AI as a tool to describe an image for you, saving you some typing time. As a side note, I'm visually impaired and I use AI to identify images for me. So this is a great tool, and I'll talk about how to use it ethically and appropriately. So here I have ChatGPT, and this is the paid version of it, but you could still do this, from my understanding, at least at the time of this video creation. The free version does the same thing. So the first thing I want to do is take an image, and here it is. I've taken that pie chart and I've uploaded it to ChatGPT, and I've put this prompt in there. Analyze this image and provide a detailed text-based explanation and description of the image, and look what it comes up with. There it goes. Now, here's what you have to do. You have to be able to spot check this and verify that AI has gotten this correctly, because it's not a perfect tool and sometimes it does weird things. So I've actually used these charts with the GPT many times in examples in the past, and it always, well, I won't say always, 99.9% of the time, it comes up with accurate descriptions. So I know that this works really well, but you'll want to go through and quickly spot check. I don't know. I'd choose maybe like 5 of these really quick and make sure that AI is representing everything correctly. And there you go. Now, for these particular images, it generates a lot of text, and it saves you how many hours, if you have 30 pages plus of these images, of typing. So this is one solution I would recommend. It's an emerging solution. AI is getting more and more powerful all the time. I will caution you that if you are using confidential data or anything that the public shouldn't be able to see, or that has some sort of restrictions on it, keep in mind that ChatGPT, Claude.ai, all of these things, they are not owned by the district, and therefore anything you upload into their systems may be visible to people who shouldn't be able to see that. So this is a good tool for your toolbox if you're just generating simple content for a class or any type of document that is available to the public or your students. If you're trying to create alternative text descriptions or just descriptions in general, sometimes this tool can be used outside of an accessible design perspective and used to summarize images just for convenience. Please be careful if you're using, and check with your supervisor and whoever is responsible for all these things before you use AI for any type of confidential images. Okay, folks, I actually have another potential solution for these complex images that I will share with you later in this presentation. It's going to be after the captioning section because it's somewhat tied in with that. But for right now, for that complicated pie chart, you might want to use AI tools as part of your tool set when it comes to generating alternative text. Okay, when you are uploading text, or excuse me, when you're uploading images into Canvas, it's even easier to add alternative text, although I think it's pretty easy in Word. When you upload an image, you'll see an alternative text field. Now, all you have to do is paste your alternative text into there for each image you upload, and you're good to go. You'll notice a little box down there that says decorative image. If you're creating your syllabus and you want to get creative and put a little cougar in the top right-hand corner of your syllabus for Cougar Pride, but it has nothing to do with your History 111 class, right? It has nothing to do with your syllabus of learning objectives. You can go ahead and put decorative image. That said, as I've noted, I'm visually impaired, and so I think about my visually impaired students when I'm um, putting silly jokes or images onto my image to lighten the mood. And so I will go in there and I'll put alternative text like, hey, Cougar Pride, Cougar with thumbs up. That's what I'll do. But it's up to you. If you don't feel like doing that, you can always put decorative image. Let's travel back in time to the beginning of this presentation when I talked about formatting tables, and that the hardest thing to remember about this particular accessible design element is that it exists. Let me show you how to do it. It's super easy. Whenever you have a table in your document, you must do this. You have to highlight that first row, right click and go to table properties. And when you do, you want to search for this box that says repeat as header row at the top of each page and check it. It's that easy. Now, folks, I don't know how the magic works. I just know what we have to do and what it does. So when we as sighted users are navigating a table, if we forget which row we're in or column, we can quickly use our eyes, look up, and see where we're at. It's like a map, and then go back down to where we need to go. Of course, if I'm blind or visually impaired, I don't have that ability. Checking this box allows my screen reader to tell me where I am in a table. And if we don't check that for whatever reason, it won't allow me to do that. So just make sure you check that box. Okay, as I mentioned, Microsoft Word is a pretty good accessible content design tool. Not only is it constantly checking for accessibility and letting you know at the bottom of your uh, document, but if you follow the directions and go to File, Info, check for issues, and check for accessibility, there's a built-in accessibility checker, and it is fantastic. It will hold your hand, tell you exactly how to fix everything, and it'll walk you through it. It's great. Now, let's also go back to that PDF accessibility checker I was talking about. Again, working with PDF documents is an incredibly difficult thing to do, even for experts and people who have been working with PDFs for decades. It's just a terribly cumbersome and difficult medium to work in. If you must design PDFs or must work in a PDF environment, I recommend InDesign as opposed to using Adobe Acrobat Pro or InDesign or whatever they're calling it nowadays. However, for most of you, many of you, I'd imagine, you're not InDesign users. So you have a PDF document. As a member of the college, you have access to the Acrobat Pro or DC, whatever they're calling it nowadays. And that's what you need to run the accessibility checker. Just go to the tools and search for access. You'll see the accessibility checker, run the full check, and it will show you exactly what is broken. The problem is it doesn't tell you how to fix it, or it tells you in such complicated terms that it just doesn't make sense, and it usually winds up breaking 12 other things. So I'm not discouraging you from using the PDF built-in accessibility checker. It can be pretty good at showing you what needs to be fixed, but I'm telling you that's probably all it'll do for you is tell you what's broken, not necessarily how to fix it. In which case, you'll want to go back and visit that PDF resource page I told you about. We're getting towards the end here of the first section, folks. We're going to talk about incorrect or non-descriptive links. So these are the bad examples I'm showing here. As I mentioned, anytime we have active links in a digital creation, those links must, in and of themselves, describe where they take you to. So here are three bad examples. We have click here, and that's the active link for a copy of policy number 34567. The second bad example is you can find a copy of your assignment active link here, and a copy of my grading rubric active link here. And this last bad example is probably the most common that I see out in the real world. Visit the student resource page here, http:// and it's the entire web address. Here's the problem, folks. If I'm using a screen reader to navigate your document, your web page, your Canvas page, whatever it is, It's reading all the stuff aloud to me. Okay. Now, like a sighted user, I just want to get to the website you recommended last week. You said it was in your syllabus, so I'm flipping through the syllabus until my eyes spot the link. I see the blue color. I see that I just know that it's an active link. And I click on it and it takes me to where I want to go. If I'm blind or visually impaired, obviously I don't have that ability. So I'm going to use a special command on my keyboard that tells my screen reader, read all of the active web links in this document or this web page, read them aloud to me. All right. And I'm going to listen for those. And when it gets to the web link that I want, I'm going to hit another command and it's going to take me to that link. This is the problem. If we're using non-descriptive links like we have on here, this is what I would audibly hear from the screen reader. Click here, 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 http colon / www.00snarf hashtags. I'm not going to go on with it. As you can see, even if we put a direct web address, sometimes those don't even identify where they go to. And oftentimes they're 20, 30, 40 characters long. That's a lot for someone to listen to. So what we need to do is fix all of these so the links tell us where they go just by looking at them. And here's how I fixed all of them. So we go from click here to download policy number 34567. We go from you can find a copy of your assignment here and a copy of my grading rubric here. And we go to please review the assignment number 1 template due this week and the assignment number 1 grading rubric. And last but not least, the most common thing I see, we've removed the web page and we've put visit the student resource page, which is now the active link for more information. Now, when I use my screen reader to read all the links aloud to me, this is what I hear. Policy number 34567, assignment number 1 template, assignment number 1 grading rubric, student resource page. That's what we want to do. So you'll want to review some of your content, maybe some content you've been using for a while, and see if you can catch those non-descriptive links and update them to descriptive links. Oh boy, only one more thing to discuss in this section, and then we're moving on. Use of color. Let's get the rules out of the way first. You want to use appropriate color contrast. Red and green can be difficult to distinguish for a user who is colorblind, but really the major takeaway from this particular section of the training is do not use color as the only indicator for directions or navigation. So let me say first and foremost, I am not opposed to you using as much color to jazz up your content that you like. Use your style, use your own particular design preferences. That's fine. What I am saying, though, is you cannot use color as the sole indicator for any type of directions or navigation. Let's take a look at a very obvious example. So here we have click on the red light to access course assignments, click on the green light to access grading information, and click on the yellow light to access supplemental readings. Now, if I could see color, this is pretty easy, right? Now, this slide is an exaggeration, obviously, but if you can't see color, then you don't know what to click on. Now, we could resolve this by adding text, some sort of alternative means of navigating. I'll give you another real world example. I'll be very brief, but I was once in a meeting where there were several proposals, like hundreds, that had to be reviewed and evaluated and basically assigned a grade, we'll say. But my committee chair, instead of numbering these, they they classified them into colored sections. So I'm colorblind, and I could not differentiate, for example, yellow, white. I couldn't differentiate red, blue, green, and so that was quite a challenge for me to follow along. Now that committee chair could have still used those color indicators if they had also included some other means of navigating. So maybe they could have added numbers or letters. Let's go to section A, number 1, which is also the red section, right? They could have done that. All right. If you are not sure if the colors you are using contrast in an accessible manner, you can always visit webaim.org. And if you're familiar with HTML code, you can just put the colors right in there. Don't worry if you're not. You can guesstimate by the slider here, and it'll give you a general score. Okay, great news. we are done with all of the technical design elements for documents and Canvas pages. Now we're going to talk about captioning. When do you have to caption and how do you caption? Well, let's talk about when. Then I'm going to break down all these terms that I've been using: captions, subtitles, transcripts. What are the differences between these things? And then I'm going to tell you how to go about captioning your content. First, all hybrid online and face-to-face or on-ground multimedia video content must be captioned. Doesn't matter if you're teaching online or not. All of this video content must be captioned. This includes YouTube videos, publisher content, any required course content in the form of video or multimedia. And last but not least, and I don't see this too often nowadays, but audio files need transcriptions. So let's now break these all down and talk about the terms before I talk about how to go ahead and accomplish these things. So let's get transcripts out of the way because I don't see this too often anymore. A transcript is a text-based Word document that contains all of the spoken words within a multimedia file within an audio file in a text format. That shouldn't say multimedia, it's in an audio file. Now, what's the difference between an audio and a multimedia file? Well, an audio file, which is where we would apply transcripts, is strictly that, only audio. There's no images, no moving video, none of that stuff. It's just an audio recording. So for this example, I'm a comps instructor. Maybe I wanted my students to hear how people spoke in films in the 1940s. So I took this quick audio clip from the film Casablanca, and I have made it available for my students. And right here, we see the transcript for it. Rick, it's funny about your voice, how it hasn't changed. I can still hear it. Richard Deere, I'll go with you any place. We'll get on a train together, never stop. It's basically just a script. So if you're maybe a linguistics instructor, or maybe you're posting an audio recording of a meeting, I don't know what the deal is, but if you're doing that and it's a straight up audio file, you'll need to include this text-based transcript. That could be easily accomplished by simply uploading the file into YouTube or running it through Zoom. There's all sorts of easy ways to generate a transcript. But let's talk now about subtitles and captions, because this is the most common type of media that we encounter in higher ed. Now, here's the interesting thing. In higher education, we tend to use some words, I would say incorrectly. Yeah, of all places, higher education, right? So I'm going to give you two examples here. We're going to start off with the word pedagogy. Okay. Now, how many people in higher ed have you personally heard talk about how they teach their college classes? In other words, what their pedagogy is. I hear that all the time. The thing is, folks, you don't even need to be that much of a Latin expert to break down the word. Pedagogy is the philosophy of teaching children, right? Andragogy is the philosophy of teaching adults. But I have never heard anybody, save for myself, and believe me, bringing this up in your next department retreat will not make you any friends. Andragogy is the philosophy of teaching adults, but you won't hear people talk about their andragogical approach to teaching in college. They still use the pedagogy. Now, here's the second term we use inappropriately, or incorrectly, I should say, in higher ed, and that's subtitles and captions. Well, what are the differences, and how is this used incorrectly? I'm so glad you asked. Subtitles are transcript files, so they have all the spoken words in there, and that's it, with special time codes inserted within the text, which tells the computer when to display the text on the screen. And this is applied to all of our multimedia, and that's audio on top of images or moving video. Now, subtitles are created exclusively by hardware and software. Human beings might do a little post-production correction work on machine-generated subtitles, but subtitles are exclusively created by machines. In fact, you may have used this very technology yourself minutes ago. If you have ever used the text app on your phone and hit the little microphone button and spoken into your messaging service, hey, I'm going to be a little late, a lot of traffic on the freeway, and it showed up as text, and you then sent that to whoever you were sending it to, that's auto subtitling. Auto subtitling is super cheap. It's basically free because hardware and software does it, which means You'll see it all the time in higher ed. In fact, almost exclusively, you'll see subtitles. Subtitles were originally designed for people watching foreign films so they could watch a film and still understand what was going on. And it meets our requirement to synchronize text with the spoken word. So, what are captions? Well, captions display text-based characters for every sound, not just the spoken word, within a presentation. This might include coughing, music, background noise, the tone of voice, the volume of the voice, all these things. And I have kind of two examples. On the left-hand side, we see someone saying thank you, and next to them, and this is how I know it's captions, screaming, "Let me help you." On the right-hand side, deep voice English accent, "May the force be with you." You might also have noticed that there's a black background and that the font is uh, all capitalized and it's white on black. This ties in with captions. Captions are exclusively created by human beings and expensive human beings at that. In order to become a captioner, you have to go through 2+ years of certification. Basically, you have to become a stenographer, and it's a very difficult field to get into and to complete. So captions are created exclusively by human beings, and therefore they're very expensive. And you won't find captions in higher ed that much, if at all, nowadays because subtitling is so easy. However, just like andragogy versus pedagogy, in higher ed, we tend to use the umbrella term of captions to refer to anything that has text synchronized with the presentation. So now you know the secret about andragogy and pedagogy, but also about subtitles and captions. In higher ed, we are exclusively using subtitles, 99% exclusive, but we refer to them as captions. Okay, so how do you quote unquote caption your content? Well, that's super, super easy nowadays. You have many options. The option I usually go for, just because this is what I do, is I upload my content to YouTube, to my own channel, and YouTube auto captions your content. It has a really easy to use built-in editor that I can go into if it didn't do it 100% correctly. And I can go in and do some post-production and update that. Alternatively, and if you're not comfortable with YouTube, and that's absolutely fine, you can go to 3C Media Solutions, which is a free service if you work at any California community college. All you have to do is sign up with your .edu account. You can upload your videos to your account, and just like YouTube, 3C Media will auto caption them for you or auto subtitle, whatever the term you're using is. And you can link that video directly to your Canvas course. So that might be the alternative you are looking for. And that's really all you need to do. You have another option. You can go to the DECT grant, which stands for Distance Education, Captioning, and Transcription Grant. And the DECT grant provides financial support for captioning and transcription of distance education at the California community colleges. They are a wonderful service that supports all students, and they have been primary figures in recognizing that distance education is the fastest growing sector, and they were doing this long before COVID. Of course, COVID exploded the online education or distance education sector, and it's a means for you to support faculty innovation and expand student success. And if we look down at the right-hand side, there's a little neon internet access sign. So what this grant does, it does the same thing. You could send them your content and they'll caption it for you. But really, this grant is special because they provide live captioners. So let's say you're teaching a hybrid or a 100% online class, and part of that is online lecture. And you get an email from a student saying, "Hey, professor, I am deaf or hard of hearing, and I can't wait for your lecture, but I am going to need some sort of live captioning because I'm deaf or hard of hearing." What do you do? Oh, super easy. Just go to the DECT grant. That's cccdectgrant.org, and fill out the paperwork. It's nothing complicated. You basically tell them who you are, what the class is, how to get there, all those things, and they will provide the live captioner for you with no stress to you. So that is how you go about captioning your content. Of course, if you are obtaining video content from a vendor or from a third party or from a publisher, you'll want to ensure that that is captioned before it comes to you. Okay, I'm going to go back in time just a little bit. Remember how we were talking about alternative text? And we talked about one method of generating alternative text for complex pie charts. That was using AI. Well, what happens if you don't want to use AI or, well, you're just looking for another way? Well, I found this really neat way that I like to use. And it's actually the Zoom conversion method. Look at that handsome guy. So here's what you have to do. It's basically what I'm doing right now. What you want to do is you want to start a Zoom session, and you want to be the only one in the Zoom session. Next, you want to begin recording to the cloud. It's very important you record to the cloud and not to your computer, because when you record to the cloud, Zoom, in its post-production, will caption everything for you. So once you begin recording to the cloud, then you'll want to share your screen. And in this case, let's use this slide as an example. So you have a complex image, and you have a lot of them. Let's say it's a PowerPoint presentation, and this is going to be available for your students, and you don't want to sit down and type all this out. We have Zoom running, it's recording to the cloud, and I'm now sharing the screen for the invisible audience or the audience that's not there. All I have to do to make this accessible is make sure that at some point, not necessarily all in order, but at some point, I read all the text on the screen and I describe any images that are on the screen. You could be as simple as reading just all the text, describe the image, next slide. Read the text, describe the image, next slide. That's fine. My style is a little different. I just can't help it. I'm a comms instructor. I love to talk. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a demonstration of what that might sound like more as a little lecture as opposed to just reading the text. And this is what it would sound like in this process. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to the DECT grant. That, of course, stands for Distance Education Captioning and Transcription Grant. And I know what you're wondering. What is the DECT grant? Well, that's such a good question. It's financial support for captioning and transcription of distance education at CCCs. And of course, that's the California Community Colleges. And boy, we need that financial support more than ever at the moment. It's also a commitment to support all students. And as faculty and instructors, even and as members of the college, our whole entire existence is to support students. It's a recognition that distance education is the fastest growing sector. This is even more so post-COVID. The numbers are staggering and amazing. And it's a means for you to support faculty innovation and expand student success, tying us back into supporting students. Student success is our overall mission here at the college, and therefore we want to support this. Now on the bottom right, there are neon signs saying internet access. Okay, that's it. Now, what did I just do? Well, if I went ahead and I stopped the recording and I exited Zoom, of course, I could continue on with all the rest of my slides, but just for example's sake, I stopped my recording. Here's what I've done. Within about 5 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending on how long your video is, I'll get a link from Zoom saying, hey, your video is ready. I have now created a fully captioned, fully audible described video for my students, meaning my deaf or hard of hearing are now able to read all of the captions to this video, right? Because Zoom automatically does that for me. It also means my blind or visually impaired students are listening to me read all the text and describe all the images. And all of my students, whether they have a disability or not, now get to enjoy my video, which I usually turn into mini lectures, but they get the benefit of the visual aspect of my PowerPoint presentation because it's right there in the video, but they also get the accessibility and that personalized touch from my voice. So this is a great option for those who have long, complex PDF or PowerPoint documents that they're using in an instructional context. Again, this is just one of many tools. Not all tools are perfect for all projects, but in this case, if I'm just conveying my PowerPoint presentations to my students, this is the way I go about it. It's easier for me to just talk. It's my natural state. And my students love it because they can listen to it, they can look at it, they can do whatever they want. It fits everybody's needs. Now, alternatively, you can almost do the same thing. It's just a more roundabout way of doing it, I guess. And you can record directly onto your PowerPoint slides. Many instructors do this. That's basically a video. So you're still going to have to caption all that, but they make it very easy. All you have to do is convert that into a video and then follow the previous steps. Either upload that to YouTube or upload that to um, 3C Media and caption it that way. So there you go. That's how you content your video content. You can use public services like YouTube. Well, I guess they're not public, but you can use free services, we'll say, like YouTube. You can also use 3C Media. And for those more complex PowerPoint documents, and in some cases PDF documents, when appropriate, you can convert those into fully descriptive videos, which is probably a lot easier and more appreciated by your end user than sitting down and typing out a lot of text. Okay, we're moving on now to the final uh, part of this presentation. Let's talk about Cite Improve. Cite Improve is a tool where if you have access to edit any type of web page here at College of the Canyons, you should have access to Cite Improve. If you don't, please email Stephen Burns. He is our Cite Improve wizard. Well, he's a PDF guru and a Cite Improve wizard. All right, let's make sure we get these rankings correct. Now, Cite Improve is the tool that the district uses to basically scour our web page, all of our web page, everything on our web pages every day. And it generates a score for us and it tells us what's accessible, what's not accessible, as well as other information you might be interested in. So you should be using Cite Improve daily to check out your own web content. If you're responsible for your departmental web page, great. Maybe you have an individual web page, whatever. You should go look at your web page, see what the score says, and it'll identify things that need to be fixed. So check that out. The last component, folks, the VPAT, the Voluntary Product Accessibility Template. You can find this template on the District Accessibility Resources page, as well as information for the vendor. Anytime you are bringing electronic tools into the classroom or onto the campus, the vendor should provide you, or you should request from the vendor, a VPAT. In the past, what would a responsible person do after taking this training, of course, if they were about to bring an electronic tool? Again, we'll go back to Pearson's Math Lab, just as an example. Well, you've taken this training, you know it has to be accessible content, so you call up Pearson Math Lab and you get the vendor and you ask, listen, I need to make sure the stuff is accessible. Is it accessible? And here's two possible scenarios. All right. The vendor says, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and call up our engineers and ask them, let me put you on hold. And they put you on hold and then they start playing Tetris. Yes, I know Tetris is outdated. I don't care. They start playing Tetris. Okay. And they leave you on hold for 10 minutes. And after they've lost Tetris, of course, 'cause it's difficult to beat, they pick up the phone. They go, yes, I just spoke with our engineers and they assure me it's 100% accessible. And you get the product in a couple of weeks. It's not accessible. And now you're getting emails from students with disabilities and they're falling behind in your class because they can't access your content. What happens? Who's to blame in that? But more importantly, how is the student going to catch up and complete your course? Okay, let's go to a much kinder scenario. Same thing. You call up the vendor, and you know what? You have an ethical vendor. And the vendor actually calls up the engineers of the product. And the engineers actually look into it. And they say, you know what? Yeah, we've done an evaluation ourselves, and it is compliant. It is accessible. They should have no problems. And the vendor tells you that, and everyone's been acting in good faith. However, in a week, the whole product is updated, right? And now it's updated with inaccessible content. And same deal as before. You get emails from your students. Who's to blame in that situation? The VPAT removes all these concerns. The VPAT is a highly technical document that the vendor must fill out that explains how every required accessible design element is or is not included in this product, or if it's even relevant. This document is reviewed by yours truly and the purchasing committee. And it helps us evaluate whether a product will meet the accessibility requirements and standards that are required of us. So make sure that you are requesting a VPAT pointing the vendor to our VPAT section of the District Accessibility Resources page, or give me a call if you're not quite sure what to do about the VPAT, and we'll get that sorted for you. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to sit through this training video. Of course, I know not all information can be conveyed for all of your many questions. So if you have any additional questions, I would encourage you to email me at scott.mcafee@canyons.edu. Alternatively, you can call me at 661-362-3356. And last but not least, I encourage you to visit the Academic Accommodation Center website, which on top of the District Accessibility Resources page has additional resources geared towards students and faculty and from that context. Please do not hesitate to reach out if you have any additional questions, and thank you for your time.